we could see a massive change to the Oilers' blue line this upcoming season, whether it be for the rest of free agency or at the trade deadline. But before we get into the trade targets for the Edmonton Oilers to plug the hole on their blue line, make sure to subscribe here to Oilers Digest, as 90% of you have not yet subscribed to the channel. Make sure to join the ride here as we get into everything Oiler related when it comes to management news, team news, trade news, extension news. Make sure to stay locked in here as we get into anything and everything Oiler related. But like I said, some trade news on the way, like a blue line swap. That's what one Oiler writer, Low Tide, thinks, otherwise known as Alan Mitchell. As you can see here, the defensive pairings from the end of Game 7, you have the familiar Ekholm Bouchard, and of course there was Nurse in Philip Broberg and Kulak in Ceci, but everyone is trying to figure out a way to get Darnell Nurse a consistent pairing with that right side there. And Alan Mitchell says, from this distance, the Oilers seem prepared to start next season with Nurse alongside either veteran Cody Ceci or youngster Philip Broberg. However, with the summer trade and free agency flurry being done, there is still time to make a bold move before September's training camp. And here's some 3 external options for the position. So let's look at the first one here. From the Ottawa Senators, you have Artem Zub, of course, a mainstay on the Senators' blue line. You can see they're not, known offensively. He's not offensively gifted, but he has played against tough competition, and he's fared fairly well throughout. Let's look at his analytics here. Of course, again, the numbers not supporting him on the offensive side of the puck, but you're not asking him to do anything offensively. But 80% defense, it's phenomenal against, again, some tough competition. You could even throw him on the penalty kill there. And I mean, with Zub, I don't think Ottawa would give him up fairly easily, but I mean, there's always a trade to be made. Of course, Steve Staios was with the Edmonton Oilers organization management at one point, moving on. So you never know. You never know if Artem Zub can be clawed from the hands of Steve Staios. But there's always a price. Well, let's look at the second one here. Rasmus Andersson, of course, the agitator from the Calgary Flames. Of course, you're thinking there's no way that Craig Conroy would ever trade Rasmus Andersson to the Edmonton Oilers. But last year, he almost traded Chris Tanev to the Oilers. But of course, Tanev did, in fact, want to go to the Dallas Stars. Again, Rasmus Andersson, 6'1". I do believe he's almost 215 pounds, so he's not exactly a light defenseman, so he can throw around the body there. And you can see him whenever there's a Battle of Alberta. Rasmus Andersson in the mix, always in the mix, whether it was with a guy like Darnell Nurse or even like the tougher guys like an Evander Kane. You can see at the Heritage Classic last year, you guys like Rasmus Andersson and Nazem Kadri, always getting involved there. So to have a guy like Rasmus Andersson on the team, I'd fairly enjoy it. I mean, he always seemed to be tough against the Oilers, and when it comes to, guys who Oiler fans did not like but eventually joined the team, you can think of guys like, back in the 80s, the Rat Kenny Lindsman, Chris Pronger, for example, and even more recently, a guy like Corey Perry, who Oiler fans swore one day, if he was never an Oiler, they would not cheer for him, but, every one of those fans I saw that wouldn't cheer for him did, in fact, cheer for him. So Rasmus Andersson, both Zub and Andersson, I would love on the Oilers. Of course, it all depends on the price point, but let's look at the last bit of a long shot, in my opinion. As we see here, forgot to cover Rasmus Andersson's analytics there, but again, still he could use some work on the defensive side of the puck, but again, plays against tough competition, and again, you could also throw him on the penalty kill there. And makes, $4.6 million there. Top pairing defenseman. Would he be a top pairing defenseman on the Oilers? I don't think so. Again, you're looking for a guy to plug in that right side on Darnell Nurse's pair. But let's look at the last one. Yes, Justin Barron. The Habs, he was an Avalanche prospect, and then he was traded to the Habs, of course. And of course, the Habs, prospect logjam on defense is getting up there because you got guys like David Reinbacher, Lane Hudson, Logan Mailloux. So Justin Barron could find himself out of a job pretty soon. And Low Tide Alan Mitchell here is looking at Justin Barron, not as like a reclamation project, but just, somewhere for Justin Barron to get bigger minutes. You can see there 7 goals, 6 assists, 13 points from 40 games. That's kind of redundant. He's more, of a he's on the rise, as you can see there, and just looking at his analytics chart, you can see there pretty much all offense, no defense, and that could allow, a guy like Darnell Nurse to play that sort of, shutdown role. Of course, with Nurse and CC, that wasn't exactly the most ideal of pairings. But just looking here in the second half of this, the Oilers can wait until the deadline for Artem Zub. Rasmus Andersson may never be available, and the Canadians are still in a building cycle and may be convinced Barron is a big part of the future. Of course, like I said, with the Habs, Barron could be lost in the shuffle there with the names that I did mention on the defensive side of them. Of course, Habs one of the best prospect pools in the entire league. And here's a quick look at the possible cost for each defenseman. Of course, Zub, one of the best players in Ottawa on the blue line, so that price could be a bit too high for a guy like Stan Bowman and Jeff Jackson to make the price for. And the Senators, they could make the playoffs this season. There's a new goalie in town. Of course, they acquired Linus Ullmark from the Boston Bruins, of course, on the very same day as Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. Always some news to be made even when there's games still be played. And the franchise has impressive offense to burn. The other issue is the cost of acquisition. Philip Broberg plus, many other, like maybe another roster player or a pick, would probably be the ask from the Senators, and that's a Broberg clearly establishes himself as an NHL player this season. I think he did that fairly easily in the playoffs, being asked to play tough minutes, play a tough role. Even when it seemed like he was sheltered, in the Stars, against the Stars and the Panthers, he was out there in tough situations, and I think he's clearly established himself as an NHL player. But a Barron for Broberg swap, I think, would just be ludicrous. Barron, his ceiling might be a little bit higher than Broberg, but Broberg did play tough minutes, and I think he's established himself as, an upcoming NHLer. There's no reason to send him back down to Bakersfield this upcoming season, as he's firmly established himself, I think, in the next couple of years as a top 4 defenseman for the Oilers. Bit of a hot take. Let me know down in the comments what you think of Philip Broberg. And then, secondly, here, Zub comes in at $4.6 million for the next 3 seasons and will then become a UFA. Rasmus Andersson has 2 more years, $4.55 million, and Barron is an RFA at this time, coming off of a cap hit of $925,000. For the Oilers, Barron and Broberg are a match in terms of cap in the deal, if considered even from the hockey side, which I don't think it's considered even. I think Broberg is a little bit better than Barron, and they could be completed without cap worries. And of course, for Zub and Andersson, some retention and payment for same would be in play. Of course, Cody Ceci's final season coming in at a convenient $3.25 million allows the Oilers some leeway in making a deal of Zub or Andersson. Of course, you could always throw Cody Ceci into that deal with, more sweeteners than, is necessary. Of course, for a guy like Cody Ceci, not exactly a hot commodity. And lastly here, the downside to acquiring Rasmus Andersson, it would of course be an extreme cost to Edmonton, as the suddenly rebuilding Flames are in no hurry to help out the provincial rival. A three-way deal might need to be brokered, and even then a package including draft picks. Again, a guy like Philip Broberg and other young assets, maybe a guy like Sam O'Reilly, who the Oilers did acquire in the first round this year. For Rasmus Andersson, might be a little bit of an overpay, but for defensemen, you got to be willing to pay a premium at this point. Flames general manager Craig Conroy held a key piece that could have aided Edmonton, at the deadline for Chris Tanev, but like I said, he traded Tanev to the Dallas Stars. It is unlikely to be a different story in the case of Andersson. Now, of course, the Oilers and Flames have traded in the past, a trade involving Steve Stamkos and Ladislav Schmid, I do believe was the case. And then, of course, the James Neal and Milan Lucic deal. But for these 3, like I said, Zub and Rasmus Andersson, I'd love to have on the Edmonton Oilers, depending of the cost, of course. But Justin Barron for a Philip Broberg swap, I think it'd be, not a lateral move. I think it'd be moving backwards for the Edmonton Oilers. That is a very unnecessary deal to be made. And if that's Stan Bowman's one of his first moves as Oilers GM, making a move of that stature, I wouldn't be surprised. You can see his work that he did in Chicago, but Ceci and a sweetener for one of those two, or even a guy like Trevor Van Riemsdyk. You need something to plug in that hole next to Darnell Nurse. You need the proper partner for him, of course, with the salary he does. You're saying to me, well, Darnell Nurse should be that guy that, other players need him, next to them to play better, but Darnell Nurse, that is not the case in this point here. He needs, a guy like I said, Ethan Bear. That was his best partner to date, a solid puck-moving defenseman that could allow Darnell Nurse to sort of, not have to jump up every time and cover for his partner, as he did in the case of Cody Ceci. But with the summer, a lot of trade rumors, a lot of trade proposals, a lot of armchair GM work from Oiler fans, because I know there's really nothing else to do. In the summer, hockey, there's other sports on, but our main point here is, finding ways to make the Edmonton Oilers better for this upcoming season, because there's not many holes left to be filled, but the spot next to Darnell Nurse, is one of them. Let me know down in the comments what you think of the 3, trade targets for the Edmonton Oilers. Would they be good pickups? Would they be bad pickups? Are there any other names that you'd like to see on the blue line? That's reasonable, that's realistic. Let me know down in the comments. Have a great day. I'm Matt.